This is the Ring of Honor, a.k.a. Shane T, boy, the baddest champion you ever seen, boy.
This is Mr. Anderson.
This is good old JR Jim Rock, and you are listening.
You're listening to Knockouts and 3 Counts.
Cover! We got a new world champion!
That might be one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen in my life.
Knockouts and 3 Counts is the podcast, baby! It's the real deal, baby!
Knockouts and 3 Counts starts now.
Ooh, what up, though? It's another Tuesday. It is Knockouts and 3 Counts, and hot damn, Kev decided he loved us again, son of a bitch, and he didn't change his social media in all this time. For those of you who have been rocking with the show for a long time, if you remember the early episodes, this motherfucker had a different Twitter handle every week. Now we just got to get him in here for a week. It's good to have Kev back. We also got Kyle back down there in the other bottom left-hand corner. We've got 3 of the original 4 Horsemen, and if you follow us on at KO3C Pod, as you should be, you would know that the original 4 Horsemen of this show have now gained a 5th member. Is Devin pulled the ring card? Let's just hope it don't end up like Miss Elizabeth. But
he pulled the ring card, but he didn't pull out of something, so.
Yeah, you know, see, when we were in Dallas and we were trapped inside about 6 months ago, I told him, I said, bro, you're going to end up marrying this chick. He's like, oh, no, I'll never get married after what happened with his car going boom.
Her who shall not be named.
Yeah, fuck her. But we're off to a great start. Kev, Kyle, how the hell you guys doing? It's great to have you guys back. Kyle, Kev, go ahead, throw your social medias out if you feel like it.
On Instagram and Twitter, it's __ King Kamikaze. On Facebook, it's Kevin D. Russ.
And you can find me on all social media. That's YouTube, Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter as Team Chaos, KAYOS. And you can always find my podcast, A World of Chaos, pretty much anywhere you listen to Knockouts and 3 Counts.
Yo, shout out to Kathy. I can't wait until Cory and I get these tumblers that you made for us. Kyle, I'll send you guys a picture of this.
Tumbler.
Kathy is awesome. She made us like these tumbler water bottles with like the logo that got made out of my new tattoo. She made one for Bobby, and he was showing us during the fight. Showing us during the show, and now Kathy was so nice but to make Cory and I one with our names on it. So shout out to Kathy. We are very appreciative, and make sure again you're following us at KO3C Pod. I will be sure to post those in our story and on Twitter, and anywhere that she might be selling those, I will definitely be sure to put those on the social medias. But since we're talking about Bobby Nash, as many of you guys know, I will be there, ring the damn bell, in Grand Rapids tomorrow for the XFC 45 press conference before everything goes down live Friday on Fox Sports 2 and ESPN, not ESPN Deportes. I meant to say Fox Deportes.
ESPN 8.
ESPN 8 the Ocho. But before we get to that, we mentioned Bobby Nash. Well, things are going to be a little different for Mr. Bobby Nash, as for those of you who have paid attention and saw our interview with Bobby last week, he now has an opponent change. And I've gotten to see a little bit of what Bobby's in store for. So let's check out Bobby's new opponent at XFC 45, Mr. Q Parks.
His name is Q Parks.
All right, time for our first professional fight of the evening.
I mean, just what a difference just by looking at these guys.
Addition here from Q Parks.
You know, I know we talked about the hard punches being thrown. We talked earlier about how it was just a fight for position, very even for about the first 3 minutes. These last two have been clearly all Q Parks.
And it looks Q Parks had.
It's a skill to utilize it, not to have it. Keeping a guy at the end of your punches, making him pay every time he comes in. That's what having a reach.
Oh!
Wow, that's it
Watch XFC.
All right, so like I said, Bobby has a new opponent at XFC 45. We just saw some of the man's handiwork over here, and Rob coming in the comments talking about bummer about LaRue. That's what I'm talking about. I don't know about you guys, but I wanted to see Bobby Nash go get him that big gold strap, be out here looking like the Nature Boy Ric Flair, who we got to talk a little bit about him because the Nature has said sayonara to WWE. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I'm with you, Rob. I wanted to see Bobby go get this big gold belt. But Corey, how are you feeling about the opponent change? For those of you who don't know, Bobby is on a 2-fight win streak. He won in the quarterfinal and semifinal by knockout of the XFC 45 welterweight, the XFC welterweight tournament, and was supposed to be going against LaRue Burley in the main event for the welterweight title at XFC 45. Unfortunately, LaRue Burley has broken his hand, so in steps Q Parks. After seeing these clips, how are you feeling our boy Bobby does against Mr. Q Parks?
I still feel as though obviously I'm riding Bobby pretty hard in this one, but other than that, to break down Q Park, dude, it looks like he's long and lengthy as hell for the division, though. He looked like he was like standing roughly about 6 inches taller than his opponent in that fight. So I'm excited to see what the match brings. It looks like he was able to do most of his work, even though he was able to get the knockout in the clip that you showed. It looked like he had done most of his work in wearing his opponent out on the ground. If that's what his attempt is to do against Bobby, that ain't gonna fucking work. I can promise you guys that. So I'm excited for the matchup nonetheless. It seems like at least a quality opponent for a late notice step in.
Well, Kyle, Kev, what do you think about this one? You think Bobby still got him covered? What do you think of Mr. Q Parks?
Oh yeah, I think Park gonna give him he gonna give him a good match, but Nash definitely got it.
Yeah, I agree. If it's anything like that clip, then it's probably gonna be a very short fight.
Like I say, man, that clip's going to be interesting. That clip is interesting because I can tell you one thing. If there's one thing I can promise, he is not holding Bobby down like that. I just don't see anybody being able to hold a Michigan State wrestler like Bobby down like that. So I am looking forward to seeing what's going on with Bobby. But that's not the only fight on the card for us at XFC 45. If you guys have been following along, we've also got the return of the Detroit superstar Darren Cruikshank, who you can also check out interviews with if you hit that subscribe button down there on the bottom right-hand corner. Darren is coming back and fighting in the States after that shit show that was Tour MMA. Hey, we got a video about that too, where he breaks down how he still hasn't been paid after getting the W for Tour MMA and why he thinks at some point he's hoping that we get to where we can see the Pride rules over here in the States. Kev, Kyle, did either of you two get to watch Pride much?
No, I did.
So Pride, you could do like soccer kicks. You could knee opponent on the head on the ground. You could basically a lot of stuff you can't do in the States. We interviewed Darren Cruikshank last week, and we're talking to him. He said he thinks it should all be legal, even down to the nut shots, because he said if you do that, then you no longer have the excuse of nut shots. He told us about how he took his cup down to the range and shot it with a gun. And he put six bullets into it, and none of them punctured his cup. Maybe that's why he's okay with nut shots. I don't know if I'm okay with nut shots.
I don't care if it's made out of adamantium. I don't want anything hitting my nuts.
Yeah, valid ass point. It does not matter. Like, it literally does not matter. There's a reason why I feel as though that shouldn't be in sanctioned bouts. Even though I agree with the Michigan man himself, on a lot of things, that's not one of them. That was definitely not one of them.
And what willingly grown ass man wants to get kicked in the nuts?
Well, all right,
I don't think he's saying he wants to get kicked in the nuts. I think he's just trying to
in the nuts. You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying like
receive. He wants to be.
I feel like if you're willing to kick, if you're willing to throw college finish move, dick kick. If you willing,
hey! I was waiting for one of you guys to bring it up. I just need people to understand. There's a reason why I said that is the best finisher of all time. What do you always hear about a good finishing move? It's got to work on everybody. And damn it, I don't care who you are. If you get kicked full on in the balls and say that you're just going to walk on through it, you're lying.
I think they'll work on Shayna Baszler too. It's funny too. When I used to do independent wrestling, my Stone Cold Stunner, it wasn't a kick in the gut, it was a kick in the nuts, because that's just a better way to stun somebody. But I digress.
Valid point.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens from Darren. I mean, Corey, how do you see this fight going? I don't know. I think he might be taking a Brazilian's head home with him come Friday night.
I would imagine so. I mean, XFC has done one thing excellent since they've been rebranded themselves, I guess you could say. They've done a really good job of matchmaking their fights. So even though I'm not necessarily familiar with the Brazilian guy myself,
he was their former champ.
That's my point exactly, is that they've done an amazing job of finding talent on both ends. There hasn't been too many like glaring A side matchups versus B side. That it's been a pretty even matchmaking, it seemed. So I do obviously lean towards Cruikshank because that's obviously who I'm more familiar with in the bout. But that being said, they've done a good job of matchmaking, so I'm excited for the fight.
Yeah, dude, I think, Darren's already got another dub back under his belt since he's been back in the States. Like I said, even though Toro wanted to be some hoes and not pay him, but that's for another time. But that's not all we've got on this card. I'm a little bummed because Bret Big Dog Martin, after getting him another dub under the XFC banner, was supposed to fight, and his opponent, pulled out due to health reasons. So hopefully his opponent gets healthy. They weren't able to find Bret a replacement. So Bret will be there. I'll definitely be linking up with him. Maybe I'll be able to chat with him a little bit. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can check all that out. With that being said, this fight might be the fight that I'm most looking forward to come Friday night. Austin Bashi is quickly making himself a name inside XFC. The kid is only I think he's 19 or 20 years older. Could be mistaken. I'm mistaken on the age 9 times out of 10, but I've been training with Austin for a long time. He's had 3 fights now in the XFC and has just absolutely demolished everybody that he's fought. I mean, they had him fight the guy off of Street Beefs, Pew, in his last fight. That fight he owned him for the whole fight. And then Enzo Perez, I mean, he went in there and put on a clinic too. I mean, I don't know about you, Corey, but I think we're going to see much of the same come Friday night.
Yet again, I would imagine so. That's the thing with a lot of this prospect MMA is you're getting familiarized with it. Even if you are aware of one side, more often than not, you're not familiar with both. But yet again, Austin Bashi has done an amazing job since he's made his name into the XFC. Is this the first time that he's on an official card and not just a Young Guns
he was on the official card for the last one.
Okay, I thought it was a Young Guns event that he was on for the last one as well. But
this has got Young Guns on it too.
Does it? Okay, so the way they did it,
the one was an all Young Guns event, but the other two have had Young Guns attached with it.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, we also have one more fight on the docket as Bad Chad Decker is stepping into the XFC hexagon. Like I said, man, I'm really looking forward to it. Can't wait to link up with Bobby and Myron and all the boys from XFC. We appreciate you guys for bringing out knockouts and 3 counts to the fights. We will be there. And again, like I said, all the more reason you got to hit that subscribe button. Otherwise, you might miss it. But we've talked about XFC 45. Let's bounce it back to the wrestling end of things for a little bit. There was a lot of news within the last couple days, man. Not only the last couple days, but the last week, man. It's all been, I really can't remember a time in wrestling where there were so many exciting moves, yet also.
Kevin, get your ass kicked? Oh, okay, never mind.
Hey, man, Devo's coming back from the grave.
Thought you were getting carjacked, so.
No, my phone failed.
Devo was coming back. He wanted the car. Fuck the bike. He wanted the car. But anyways, like I said, we've had a lot of news in the world of pro wrestling. I will start from the one that I think is probably most surprising to me, but here's, I guess, best place to start as any. So, as you can see, there's a picture of Bray Wyatt there. It was released that he is released from the WWE. There's not really... What were you saying?
It was released that he was released. That's what you said.
Yeah, you know, just double released. But
well, yeah, you got
man.
Bray, and then you got the Bray, and then you got the Fiend.
I mean, yeah, it was a double release. I knew what I was saying. It was a double release. They released them both. But yeah, man, like I said, this one definitely caught me off guard. I did not see Bray Wyatt getting released from WWE in this one. Rob coming in the comments, can't wait for Friday, got a table for this event. Hey, man, we're going to be there at the event. If you see us, feel free to come say hi. We appreciate you checking out the show, brother, man. But yeah, dude, Bray Wyatt getting let go is just mind-blowing to me because, I mean, I don't think I'm too far-fetched for saying this, and I'll give my thoughts on it and leave it to you, Kevin, Kyle, to give yours as well. But, I mean, I think it's unarguable that Bray Wyatt is probably the best character of the last 10 years that WWE has created from scratch. Like, let's not forget, Bray Wyatt had like a creepy character before, but it was nothing like The Fiend. And for them to build that from scratch into what it was and then just utterly crash and burn it, it's crazy, man, because I'm not going to lie. With all the stuff that we've seen with Alexa Bliss, I really thought at some point, like, the payoff was going to be that Bray was going to come back and take his throne back. I mean, at least I would think that's what most people thought we were going to see out of this. But, you know, I'm also hearing that it could have something to do with his mental state. I mean, you got to realize in the last year, his fiance or wife JoJo got let go, his dad got let go, his brother got let go, and they basically brought his push like right to a screeching halt. So there's still no clear word as to like the full reasoning as to why he got let go. Bray still hasn't said anything yet. We're gonna have to see how it plays out, but Kev, Kyle, whichever one of you wants to go first, what are your thoughts on Bray Wyatt leaving WWE?
Kev, you can go first.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm bummed about it, but at the same time, I'm happy for him because with him being released, it gave him a better avenue to do what he really wanted to do. Like everybody knows, like I'm pretty sure he didn't have full creativity on his character. So
obviously,
it gives him a chance to go elsewhere, no matter where he decides to go, and have full range of whatever he want to do. So I'm really happy for him. Like it's sad, you know, anybody get released, it's sad, but I feel like this is a better opportunity for him. I think it's gonna be a good opportunity for him.
Kyle, before you give your point, our buddy Jerry, who you know is a photographer at a lot of these shows, been doing his thing out at AEW and all that, is chiming in the comments. He's talking about the Fiend character. He said, no, he built it. He built it, not them. He wasn't their Undertaker. They never meant for him to get over the way he did, which is why he's saying they blew it up. And I mean, Jerry, I mean, it's kind of hard to argue that one when you consider, I mean, historically, non-WWE creations usually don't go over as well, minus the ones where they were forced, like another guy we'll talk about here shortly in Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan. I mean, he kind of forced their hand, but 9 times out of 10, if it isn't what Vince wants to do, man, we ain't doing it. Kyle, what do you think?
For the Fiend, it was an amazing character. Bray, William Watundam is probably the best creative mind of his generation. The Bray Wyatt character, what it started out as, what it evolved to, and then the Fiend are 3 of the best high concept characters that have been in wrestling in the last 20 years. Like anybody can be or emulate Stone Cold or The Rock, You know, you got a lot of guys that are still Bullet Club basically now is just emulating what DX was and NWO was, but there's nobody that can emulate Bray Wyatt. There's nobody that can emulate the Fiend. So he is a high concept mind, a high concept character. It is a huge loss because everybody, from what I saw on Twitter, wrestling wise, was completely shell shocked from it. Alexa Bliss, she said she was completely heartbroken from it because he's one of her best friends in WWE. And it just goes to show that WWE right now does not actively care about their product. They only care about the money they can get from licensing and selling their product. Because if you cared about the product, you would keep one of your biggest merch pushers on television with the gimmick he created and not take it, water it down, dilute it, and then give it to somebody that had nothing to do with it in the first place. So it just shows that they actively are showing to fans they do not care, because people cared about the Fiend because that's why he's one of your biggest merch pushers. That's why people, not a lot, but that's why some people paid $900 for that Fiend belt.
Oh, that belt was badass, but I'm not paying $900 for it. But that being said, I got a counterpoint to that. And Corey, you know, I'll bring you in on this point. So the thing that I heard when I was listening to some of the news about, you know, Bray leaving, that's an interesting point. So you said that this ultimately illustrates that they don't care about the product. I would argue that in a way, yeah, you can look at it that way, but I think this is more evidence that when you look at the difference in the two products, right, even if we're just comparing Raw to SmackDown, right, we already have heard from multiple sources that SmackDown, you know, Fox has told them, like, we don't want this shit that you're putting on Raw on Fox, and they've demanded certain talents to be that they wanted on their network, which they have every right to. I mean, they paid $1 billion for it. That being said, look at the quality and product we're getting in SmackDown versus look at the quality product that we're getting in Raw. SmackDown, I feel like in a lot of ways is still a pro wrestling show. Raw has basically become a variety show.
But it's that's 20 years though, as far as Raw and SmackDown though.
SmackDown always has been more of a wrestling show because you look at the people, not only the people they had on their roster, but how they booked them. You had Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, SmackDown 6, you know, and then you look over at Raw, you had divas and bra and panty matches. You had
but I mean, we got to remember Raw is war from the Attitude Era too, so it wasn't always like that. But I agree with you. Even when they first started the brand split, I mean, SmackDown was always kind of known for the more wrestling end of it. But I think that the thing that really sticks out to me in this is, if you notice, I'll take it back even a little bit. I'll take it a couple months back, you know, before they were able to have any real fans back, right? When we were still doing everything in the Thunderdome. If you look in the consistency of the storylines, right, where you were genuinely interested to see what was going to happen with Edge and Roman, for example, or, you know, basically the whole Roman Reigns storyline in general. Then go and look at Raw. Raw, I mean, this whole time I feel like has been trying to force what they want you to remember and not remember what they don't want you to remember. Perfect example of that was when Karrion Kross came out on Monday. As Keith Lee's coming to the ring, they're showing him beating Randy Orton, which was from over a year ago when he debuted on Raw. Yeah. Right. And so they're just bringing that back up because they want you to remember that Keith Lee is a credible threat. And then what happened? The NXT champion lost again. Corey,
and that to me, real quick, that to me, you're booking yourself in a corner because Keith Lee was off TV for 4 or 5 months. On his first match, 6 months. When his first match back, he loses. And I've heard some people say, well, you have to make Bobby look like a credible challenger. I mean, a champion. But I'm like, okay, but if you are just tuning in and this is your first time seeing Keith Lee, and this is your first time seeing him on TV in 6 months, and Bobby beats him, how does that make that look compelling? That's just a squash match. So having Cross lose to Jeff Hardy, then now lose to Keith
in
Lee.
a minute and a half, no less.
That didn't do either one of them any good. And the thing is, you did not have to have them versus each other. You didn't have any story with that. You could have had Cross go against.
Why couldn't Cross just beat the hell out of Jeff Hardy in the first place instead of having him lose stupid like that? I mean, granted, they didn't know Jeff Hardy was going to catch COVID, so they couldn't follow the matchup.
But still, why do you bring the NXT champion up to literally have him lose to somebody whose last match was on main event?
I completely agree. And here's a point from people in the comments. Shout out to Jerry again, coming into the comments. And I'm going to pose the question that I had for you, Corey. Jerry coming into the comments. Heel Roman is still fresh and good. Edge being back is still fresh. SmackDown's 2 hours and Raw's 3 hours. I mean, I can't argue with that either, because I've said that multiple times on this show too, that the 3 hours, I feel like a lot of times they just end up coming up with bullshit to fill the show. Can't argue with either one of those.
They do that. They do that and still don't use half their roster even before they release them. So you have a 3 hour show and you still don't use people, which is amazing.
I haven't watched a full 3 hour Raw in over a year. Like, I watched the hour and a half Hulu version, or I just watch the highlights on YouTube.
I hear that.
I probably would say the same.
Well, before I ask this question to Corey, is everything all good over there, bro? It looks like you got the boys behind you.
They are behind me. Look.
Is that for you or somebody else?
Damn it, Kev! I told you not to be riding dirty out here, bro.
And they put 2 cars over at the same time.
Damn.
Well, you just better make sure that you aren't number 3. Well, while Kev situates his car situation,
I'm parked.
that doesn't always mean anything, brother man. We know how cops do out here. But Corey, so for you being somebody who isn't is engrossed with wrestling, and Kyle and Kevin, if you don't already know, you already know because we were talking about doing it together. But I'm really excited for All Out, not just for the event itself, but because this is going to be Corey's first big show. Hadn't been to a pay-per-view. This is going to be his first big one, and it's going to be there for All Out. So, Corey, I pose this question to you. With you being somebody who's not as deeply engrossed in wrestling, if I were to have you tune in to Raw and they are showing commercials about how much of a badass Karrion Kross is, which he is when you look at the stuff on NXT, and then I have you watch Raw, and in that same episode, that same champion loses in a minute and 30, or they have him win 1 week and then he loses again.
And he loses
what is
to
that?
Old-ass Jeff Hardy from the.
Hey man, don't hate on Jeff Hardy, but being the fact that he was 6-30, that was trash. But if you see that, what is that for you being, an outsider? What is your first thought on that guy?
That's the thing from an outsider's perspective, not being a wrestling fan anymore. I look at it from like being behind the curtain, I guess you could say. I get to see, like, obviously this guy's not getting the push from the organization like he wanted when he moved up, would be my initial thought. He's not getting the
I'm just talking about if you see a guy getting his ass whooped in a minute and a half, are you that likely to tune in the next night and believe that he's going to come in and whoop this dude's ass on NXT?
Doubtful. I mean, but that's the thing with wrestling, is there's so many coming back stories, like it's built into the narrative of it, I guess you could say. So, like, I'm not going to tune in expecting it, but that's what the thing is with wrestling, is you're there to expect the unexpected, I guess you could say.
I feel that, but I guess the point I'm getting at out of that is here's the thing. He's your champion on NXT. Yeah. For you to bring him up and then put him on Raw and then have him lose, and not only lose, you have him lose to a guy who, like we said, even though it's Jeff Hardy, who's a legend and a Hall of Famer, he's 6-36 in his last 36 matches, dude, and you have the champion lose to him.
But look at it. Look how they've been bringing up the NXT call off lately anyway, though.
Right, but Corey, see, now you're hearing it from another side. This is why I tell you, this is why a lot of people are worried about people going from NXT to the main roster.
Yeah. I've been worried about that since forever. Shit, it's been longer than that. It's been longer than that.
I mean, I've heard it from a bunch of people we've had on, but what's the actual
what happens is,
look at what we just said. That's their champion.
Yeah, they're gonna actively try to diminish their product, even though that's something on their network.
That's basically what it is, because this is probably the worst example, and there are numerous examples of it happening over the last 4 years. But you literally take the biggest guy in your third brand and have him lose to somebody who is not a credible challenger for any title, who cheated to win. And then he was the good guy. And you watch 2 or 3 weeks before, and you have one of the best wrestlers in the world in any company in Finn Balor, and he can't beat him. And it just completely loses all credibility for that title. And the thing is,
not to mention, you forgot the best part. Remember we were talking about Samoa Joe, Corey? We're talking about Samoa Joe, how he got released and all that, and they brought him back to NXT. Well, they're building the whole thing up to where they had to bring Samoa Joe in to stop Karrion Kross. Well, it's hard to believe that they need somebody to stop Karrion Kross when Karrion Kross is getting beaten a minute and a half on Raw, doesn't it?
When Jeff Hardy's putting his feet on the ropes, which didn't do anything.
It should be.
Like I said, man, my thing is I just don't. It's like sometimes it almost seems as though if you get over in NXT, it's like because Vince didn't have his hands on it. I don't know, man. It's just it doesn't make any sense, because here's the thing. Even if you look at a lot of the top stars that they have on their main roster, right? Somebody else that we'll end up talking about at some point, Charlotte Flair. She was NXT champion. Becky Lynch had her run in NXT. Sasha Banks had her run in NXT. Bayley.
Notice when they talk about Charlotte now with her title reign, they don't
ever mention she was NXT champion
twice,
which doesn't make sense, because it's like that literally would then give her 2 extra title runs, and she's the first Triple Crown winner to have an NXT, Raw, and SmackDown. So it's like you're actively trying to avoid NXT when it is bringing you some of your best talent.
At the point they saying the NXT don't mean shit because now you're on a different show.
Pretty much. What were you gonna say, Corey?
Only the fact, like you had said, that they bring them a lot of their top tier talent at this point. The fact that it seems like a lot of the viewership and actual wrestling fans are the ones pointing out the fact that that's a superior product at this point. And then that they'll bring them on and actively diminish it is just it is a funny conundrum, I guess you could say.
Well, dude, I mean, not to mention that. I mean, that goes right into the other point that I had to bring up on with NXT. Speaking of all this, we mentioned All Out, and before I get to All Out, the funny thing with all of that is that one of NXT's best stars of their entire tenure, Adam Cole, baby, is he's wrestling with no contract right now. The dude was in your main event of your last 2 takeovers. He's wrestling under no contract because
nobody realized that.
He's got no contract. His contract is pretty much done after SummerSlam from all the reports that you're hearing. And here's the kicker. So my man don't have a contract. And like I said, Corey, and I don't think I'm just blowing smoke saying this, Adam Cole arguably is one of the greatest NXT champions of all time, period.
Top 5 at the minimum, if not top 3 or 2.
Well, I mean, he's got the greatest NXT title reign, period. I don't think there's really any arguing that. I mean, he defended it more. He beat pretty much everybody that was over there. I mean, like I said, Adam Cole pretty much has done everything there is to do in NXT. And so to think that they would allow his contract to even get to that. Now, again, like you mentioned, Corey, WWE is not above making things look like that. Look at what they did with Drake Maverick, and they released him, and then he ended up back, shortly thereafter. But here's the thing. The reason why this one makes this a little bit more interesting is because here's the thing. Adam Cole is still under an NXT contract. That means he has a 30-day non-compete versus the 90-day non-compete. If he's done August 20th at, after SummerSlam,
he could show up on Dynamite.
Guess what? Right after All Out's over, guess who could show up on AEW shortly thereafter?
he technically could show up right there, right? He could show up before that if he just stopped showing up. Say he doesn't show up for, well, they already pre-taped the next 2 weeks, this week and next week. But if he just stopped showing up to NXT tapings and said I'm out, he could, that 30 days starts immediately from then. So he could even show up before that.
Now it's a possibility that his NXT contract, but that don't mean his WWE contract is over.
That's why I said this is WWE we're talking about. I'm not saying that he's going to go anywhere. I'm just saying it would be interesting if he did, because here's the other conundrum.
Well, look at Aleister Black's contract. He was on the main roster for how long, and they didn't realize that he still had an NXT contract.
Well, right. That's why I'm saying this makes it interesting. Not to mention, Adam Cole's almost got more reason to go to AEW than anybody else does, because his fiance is the women's champion.
All his friends,
his best friends, are the two of the 3 EVPs there. I mean, he would come in hot off rip. I mean, like I said, it's going to be interesting. Jerry, if you're still in the comments, I'd love to know what you think. Do you think Adam Cole is really going anywhere? Let us know in the comments. That we talked about, people who might go places, and we talked about one of the big releases of the day. There's another one that we got to talk about, man, and one that's maybe not so much surprising because he wasn't in the ring so much, but what makes this one very interesting is because of the reasoning. The other release that we had go down yesterday was not. The Nature Boy, Ric Flair, is gone from WWE. He asked for his release, and from everything that we're hearing so far, it's being cited that the reason why he asked for his release was because of what we've been seeing in creative, not only with the company, but more specifically what's gone on with his daughter. Rick and Charlotte both have pretty much made it clear that they weren't fans of the whole Lacey Evans storyline. That never really made any sense to me, given the fact that most people knew that her and Andrade were together at that point. Flair is married to Wendy, and then you got Lacey Evans, who is not shy about her being happy to be a mom and got kids and is married.
Most of her, anytime she's a baby face, they always show the pictures and stuff and videos of her and her family anytime she's a baby face. So it's kind of hard to believe that now she's knocked up by the Nature Boy. Like, there's suspension of disbelief, but then there's bad writing.
Man, first off, it was on Raw, so obviously it was a shit storyline.
I mean, you're not wrong, but you're not wrong, but I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about here. And I mean, when Ric Flair is saying, what we're saying with Charlotte Flair, I mean, let's talk about Charlotte Flair for a minute. I mean, Kyle, Kev, I guess his question is,
my thing is, what does she want? What that thing is them saying Charlotte's unhappy. What are you unhappy about? You literally
here's what you're unhappy about. I mean, think about it.
The title contention, like, it's getting annoying because she was.
I can completely answer that question,
and now she's in Nikki's. It's getting a little.
I can completely answer that question.
To that point,
you say what could be bothering her. I mean, let's face it. I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that Charlotte Flair is arguably one of the top 5 wrestlers they have, period, male or female, on that whole roster. As far as female wrestlers, I don't think it's too far to say that Charlotte is arguably, if not already, one of the greatest, if not the greatest women's wrestler of all time. I think what this comes down to is there's nobody really left there that can really push her, whether it's because they're not on the same level, or like in a Rhea Ripley situation, maybe because they're trying to change her too much, or whatever the case is. I mean, who on Raw right now, unless they bring Becky Lynch back to Raw, which for all intents and purposes seems like that might be what's going on. Who else besides Becky Lynch could really do shit that's going to make me say, oh shit, Charlotte's actually got some kind of opponent, unless they miraculously rebuild Shayna Baszler. But I mean,
that's the thing. You have people there that you could do that with, but you don't build them up. You immediately have them lose to Charlotte, or you make them look incompetent. So when they actually go versus her, it's a no question of who's going to win. And that's that 50-50 booking thing. Like the same thing with Cross and Keith Lee. You have to build people up, and it doesn't take that much. You could have easily built Rhea up to be a competent fighting champion by not having all of her feuds contain her and Charlotte Flair. That completely milked everything out of it. Everybody praised their WrestleMania match. To me, it was one of the more boring matches because I had seen that match with them in the last 4 weeks. They do not build up anybody else in their women's division outside of the 4 horsewomen. So therefore, when you have somebody brand new, you don't really know who they are. Look at Bianca Belair. I'm happy we have a black female champion again. I like Bianca, but she's boring as hell because all her story was built around her and Bayley and then her and Sasha. So all I know is she doesn't like bullies. Okay, who are you?
She's Montez's wife.
That's her other trait.
Man.
She's Montez Ford's wife, and she doesn't like bullies and likes to slap people where she has no identity. I mean, not everybody gets to be Becky Lynch and has all that personality, but you could at least build off of something and make other people competent going versus her, and they haven't done that on either brand.
But what I'm saying, and my thing about Charlotte is same thing with John Cena, how it used to be. John Cena, his thing goes, how can we look at him as an underdog? He's never really been an underdog.
Well, Cena hasn't really been underdog since when he first came in and smacked the shit out of Kurt Angle, but that's just because he was doing it with Kurt Angle.
Nobody knew who the fuck he was. But that's what I'm saying. Once they realized who John Cena was.
Oh, yeah.
Only time
he's never been an underdog. And I mean, here's the thing, dude.
That's what I'm saying.
I would like to think later on down the line, people are really going to realize what we've got with Charlotte Flair because, I mean, dude, I mean, I've heard this idea thrown around a bunch, and I'd love to hear what all three of you guys think. Corey, you used to watch wrestling back in the Attitude Era. You know, I would argue that we're almost at a point where there's not as much left to do with Charlotte. So what if we start letting her wrestle dudes like China used to? What do you think about that?
I don't think she's got the frame like China does. China's that big old bulky bitch. That's why she was able.
Are you sure though? Look at China once China slimmed down versus
Charlotte's like Charlotte weighs less than
of China
Adam Cole.
Still significantly bigger. So no, I don't.
Nia Jax, yeah. Nia Jax could touch because you could throw Nia Jax and not even have Cruiserweight. She could tussle with some guys, but Charlotte, no.
You're breaking up a little bit, Kyle, but yeah, man, it's interesting. It's interesting though, because Charlotte is like super strong though. That's the thing. I would love to see what could happen with her and some of these guys, like I said, or at least do something. Whether it's more intergender matches or do something. I just feel like they're running out of challenges for Charlotte at this point, dude. So, like I said, it's I don't know. It's just interesting to me. We lost Kev. It was Kev that was breaking up. Hopefully, we'll get Kev back here in a second. Let's see. Fetch that. Okay, now we're back in business. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Charlotte, dude. But I mean, at this point, they've really backed themselves into a corner as to what you can really do left with them. But we're talking about surging stars and things like that. I mean, there was another surging star that pretty much made his way out of the weekend, and that would be AJ Mckee. AJ Mckee came out and knocked Pitbull's fucking lights out. Kyle, I know you're not the biggest MMA guy, but Pitbull has been the 145 and 155 pound champ for Bellator for the last 5 years. Nobody's even gotten close to touching him. And Bellator hit about as big of a home run as they could have ever hoped for, because they not only put Pitbull, who is the champion, in there, which means anytime you fight Pitbull, you're fighting for the championship. They also put AJ Mckee, who was the young gun that they were hoping was going to meet Pitbull in the finals, and somehow that's what we got in the final. But I don't think that was what anybody was really expecting. Hot damn. Eat defeat. You know, we heard about that from Gail Kim and other people. Man, Anthony Mckee hit the head kick heard around the world, put Pitbull down, and then was able to guillotine him, of all things, and put Pitbull to sleep with his own choke. I don't know, man. That's a hell of a statement win for AJ Mckee. How you feeling about it, Corey?
like you said, what a statement. I mean, what a way to claim that belt in a division. Like it would have been one thing if Pitbull was somehow defeated by somebody else in the tournament and he was able to snatch the Bellator featherweight belt from somebody else's hands. But the fact that, like you said, the tournament played out in a way that in Bellator's eyes, I'm sure, was the most picture perfect way, where they had the two brightest potential stars meet at the end in the final. And then for AJ Mckee, who, even though he wasn't the champ, even though he didn't have everything going for him, he did have the fans going for him like crazy. He was getting the push from all the fans, from all the media and everything. And he was able to perform on that. He was able to take all that momentum in stride and take it full force. So I'm excited for what the future brings for AJ Mckee. I've been watching him under the Bellator banner for a very long time. I'm wondering how much longer that may still be the case, to be honest with you. I don't know how much longer he has on his fight contract or whatever the case be. But even Dana White today, when talking to, I believe it was the UFC Air Arabia page, they had asked about AJ Mckee, and he had came out and said that, hey, once his contract's up, we're in serious interest in having some conversations with him. So we could see another potential 1-2 fight away from a title fight contender like we did with Chandler. So I'm excited. I'm excited for what the future brings for Mckee.
That leads right into what I wanted to ask you about, though, dude. So you say that we could see another Chandler situation, but here's the thing. I would argue that AJ Mckee still has a lot left to do in Bellator. I mean, let's face it. I mean, okay, he won the 145-pound title, and he wants to go up and fight at 155, but let's not forget, you've got Khabib's cousin or little brother, or who is that that's at 155? That's an absolute killer.
He's got his whole camp fighting under the Bellator banner at this point. But I believe the person that you may be referring to is
Islam Nurmagomedov. Usman.
Yeah,
Usman Nurmagomedov. That's what I meant to say. So, like I said, man, you've got Khabib's relative in there who's an absolute murderer. You know, you've got Pitbull's little brother who's there as well. Yeah. And let's not forget, in order for him to move up and get the 155-pound title, you got to beat Pitbull again. And Pitbull hadn't lost in how many years before that fight? So, I mean, moving up a weight class and taking on a guy like Pitbull again is going to be interesting. But I feel like there's still some more fights for him to do at 145, though, dude. As champ.
I want to hear who your examples are, because I would have argued that fact had Emmanuel Sanchez pulled out the victory, but I feel like
I think he should at least defend the title at least once so that he solidifies himself as champion. Because let's look at when Conor McGregor did the champ thing. He never defended the belt at 145.
Yeah.
Never defended it once. So, Kyle, okay, you know, you're a pro wrestling fan. You know, what's the old saying? You can be champion, but being champion and not defending the title. I mean, I want to see him go back to 145, solidify that, and then move up to 155. And then if you take out Pitbull again, let his contract run out and let the UFC touch him. You know what I mean? If he can win a fight, go up to 55, fight Pitbull again, and then beat Pitbull. Okay, then go back. Then, you know, let's talk about UFC. But, you know, it's something you always hear about in pro wrestling. You know, I want to see you defend the title. Kathy coming in the comments, she said she seems to agree with me. She said 100. She wants to see Mckee come back and fight again and defend that title. And Kev looks like he's not done yet. He's not done yet. He hasn't had enough yet. Let's see if he is working this time.
I am working, and my phone had died.
Yeah, it was kind of on the fritz, guy. It was one of those deals. I don't know what.
I was sending y'all a message, and my phone just died in the middle of the message.
Well, what had happened was his phone died, and apparently so did his light. But anyways, we were just getting into talking about AJ Mckee and what he did this past weekend. The other thing I wanted to bring up, Cory, it's a guy that you were really excited to talk about. Sean Strickland. I mean, he had one of the craziest post-fight octagon interviews I think I might have ever heard. I mean, Kyle, since I know you guys probably missed it, my man got in there and put the work on Uriah Hall and then proceeded to get on the microphone and say, I really got to thank the UFC. They changed my life because if it wasn't for them, I'd probably in a meth house cooking crack. And I'm like, damn, like it's like that. Like we're out here struggling, man. And this man put the work on Uriah Hall, dude. Before we talk about Sean Strickland, I mean, it's really unfortunate for Uriah Hall. I mean, he fights Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman snaps his leg, Anderson Silva style, and then comes in here and fights Sean Strickland. And I mean, quite honestly, I mean, he had his moments in the fight, but he got worked by Sean Strickland. So what do you think for Uriah Hall side of here?
For the Uriah Hall side, I think it's potentially regather and regroup and see what he can do. I mean, he was on a 4-fight win streak. Realistically, it should have been a 3-fight win streak because I'm not counting that Chris Weidman one as a win. That's just that should be a no contest in my book. It was the first strike thrown. There was nothing. No contest there. He was on a 3-fight win streak in my opinion, and he has momentum in strides. He has moments in fights where you can see all his potential at work. It's just he has this like real thing of not performing under the lights. From every single interview and every coach interview and everything I've ever seen, Uriah Hall is a gym leader, and he's actually the captain for the team over in Colorado right now that he's at. And it just seems like every time under the lights, he just has an issue performing. I feel like that's what we've seen against Sean Strickland. As for the Strickland side of this, though, man, dude's on the rise. He's looking like a serious contender in the division. He's beat everybody they put in front of him pretty handily. He's now being already offered in another fight for a quick turnaround, basically, against Luke Rockhold.
Against who?
Luke Rockhold.
Dude, he had beat Luke Rockhold's ass right now, dude.
You feel
Sean Strickland had beat Luke? I do feel that way. I'll put $20 on it right here live on the show. Sean Strickland's about to whoop Luke Rockhold's ass. Pick up that bet, Cory.
I feel as though Luke Rockhold's a little more well-rounded, but what fucked me up is I felt
he hasn't fought in 2 years, dude, and I feel like the pressure that Strickland was putting out, I don't know that Luke Rockhold can handle it.
That's the one. That would be the thing that would concern me, like you said, is the pressure. But I feel like Luke Rockhold's got a much well-rounded game.
Hey, they probably make Strickland the big underdog in that one. I'm taking that. You heard it here first from the sports book of Kyle. I'm betting on Sean Strickland on that one. Hey, man, that was a career-making performance for Sean Strickland, dude. I mean, he really came out, did the damn thing. Really showed out because, to be honest, I really didn't know much about Sean Strickland, and it was really kind of an underwhelming main event for me. He did his thing, but I mean, as far as if we're, another thing I know you wanted to talk about was which card really delivered more. I'll be honest with you, bro. I still stick to what I said when we were watching it. There were some fights that were awesome and some badass knockouts on UFC, but if I'm being honest, bro, even if it's just the main event, that main event between Pitbull and Mckee had me wanting to watch that one more. And I feel like as a whole, because it had the build of that whole tournament, to me, I feel like Bellator did better business this weekend and did more for themselves on this one.
I can, like I had not argued, but went back and forth with you about throughout last week, is I felt like if we're taking one fight against one fight, which fight would I choose to watch? Yeah, it was AJ Mckee versus Pitbull all day long. That being said, I feel as though still that the UFC card way outperformed the Bellator one. There was a lot of lackluster performances, the Brett Primus fight, he looked great off his back, but the cousin of Khabib just literally...
That guy really surprised me, dude.
Huh?
That guy really surprised me because I really thought that Brett Primus's jiu-jitsu would really kind of make a difference in that fight, dude. I really did.
Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't make more of a difference. It really stifled his game on the top, but that's the type of stuff that bothered me. It seemed like more like Bellator was just trying to use up the foreign talent, I guess, that you could say that they're trying to build up, and they put them in the spotlight position.
They just said, hey, Khabib, back up your whole team and we'll sign them all to Bellator.
Your whole like who you got over there? Let's you got any more brothers or cousins? Any other guys that shave their beard that way? Any other ones? All right, bring them over.
Any other guys that wrestle bears on the weekends?
It's crazy in that regard. I'm trying to pull up right now. Excuse me for looking at my phone, but I seen some numbers reported about the. Yeah, here it is. I found the tweet right here. Even though I feel as though Bellator did shine, and a lot of this that I'm about to say can be argued with the fact that the UFC card was played on ESPN, so you had a lot broader of an audience compared to Showtime for the Bellator end. But the UFC card averaged 797,000 viewers on ESPN and peaked at 953. This is from Kevin Ioli. The Bellator card averaged 85 and peaked at 177. So even though they put on their best of their best, that's significantly well shy of anything we were seeing.
Now,
on a
to be fair though, let's not forget, number one, how many times have we talked about on this show how Bellator does not always do the best job of hyping their cards, number one. Yeah. Number two, you just mentioned that it was on Showtime, where Showtime has the same issue that Impact Wrestling has, in that not everybody's got it. That's why not as many people watch Impact Wrestling as maybe they should. So, I mean, I feel like there's a few buffers that you got to throw out because, I mean, again, let's not gloss over the fact, how often do we come on the show and say, this Bellator card, man, that's what I'm really looking forward to when we're talking about a weekend of fights. And it wasn't just us. There were multiple people who were saying, that's what I'm looking forward to, which for Bellator, I would say is a win. But since we're getting close to the end of our time here, Kyle, Kevin, I'm going to bounce this back to you. We talked a little bit about road trips, talked a little bit about Chicago, talked a little bit about a lot of those kind of things. Well, we keep hearing a rumor that, a certain cult of personality and, CM Punk and, this guy, Bryan Danielson, maybe you heard of him, the American Dragon, might be making their way over to AEW. Kyle, I'll leave this question to you because I know you're a huge Punk fan. Cory only really knew a little bit about CM Punk from a lot of the stuff that he did in MMA. He's seen him do his commentary. He wasn't really around as much for his wrestling stuff. In my opinion, the CM Punk coming back to AEW is about the biggest boom that you're really going to get around wrestling. Now, I heard it kind of compared to like what if Becky comes back and they do, Becky and Charlotte face to face after SummerSlam, which I'm not going to say that Becky Lynch coming back isn't going to do a big number, but I would argue that CM Punk is probably the biggest return that you can get in wrestling that is really on the horizon. So since you're a bigger CM Punk fan, what are your thoughts on him coming back to AEW, or at least it being rumored that he's going to come back to AEW? And for Cory, who's not the biggest wrestling guy, can you help me explain what I've been trying to tell Cory and why, if he shows up at All Out, why the people in Chicago might lose their brain?
Okay. You got this guy?
Oh,
I don't know.
I think we can hear you.
Kyle, you good?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you my reason before you figure it out. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Lead the way. So
look, what Chicago, so it's been 7 years since he's been gone. 7 years since he's been gone from WWE, since he had a wrestle period. he did the MMA thing. Okay. Now, if he returned to wrestling in his hometown, and actually is there to wrestle, they're gonna go crazy. Just absolutely, and absolutely ape shit. And around this time, Kyle usually watches his him and Cena match from 2011 around this time.
Yep, the best.
Jerry put it
one of
best.
the
He
top
says
5.
people want what they can't have from. They want what they can't have for the past. I don't know how many years. Punk wrestling is just that. I couldn't argue that one. I mean, we always want what we can't have. I mean, it's just like Cory, to put it into some terms maybe that you could see. It's kind of how everybody was talking when GSP was going to come back and do all that stuff too. But go ahead, Kyle. I just was trying to acknowledge the listeners in the comments.
For somebody that's not like a hardcore wrestling fan, so CM Punk was one of the first guys in modern indie wrestling that was a great indie wrestler, was over, went to WWE, and then actually became a star in WWE. If you look at guys like Seth Rollins, if you look at guys like Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, Finn Balor, Cesaro, all these guys were guys who were big primarily in Ring of Honor and then went on to become stars in WWE. Punk was the first hybrid of that. He's not a muscular guy, as you've seen. He's not a huge guy. He's technically sound. He's one of the best in the world on a microphone, and he knows how to actually put on a great wrestling match where he can tell a story inside the ring. As a guy that was not into indie wrestling in the early mid 2000s, I didn't know anything about him. I saw one of his matches late. I saw the match he had with Tyler Black, who now we know is Seth Rollins. I saw that match, and then I kind of got into Ring of Honor. I didn't watch the WWECW that they had, which was a proto NXT, until right before it got canceled. But when I did watch, he was the guy that caught my eye. Then I followed him over to SmackDown, and I started following him because I'm like, oh, this guy's, he looks different. He's scraggly. He's got long hair. He's got a beard. He's really good on the mic. Who is this guy? Cut to the pipe bomb, which most people know of in wrestling as one of those landmark moments. And he was the guy that truly grasped for that brass ring. And then they said, yeah, but we're still going to move it a little further back from
just so that Cory knows what you're talking about, just so that we don't gloss over the pipe bomb. Cory, have you ever heard of the pipe bomb promo?
Yeah, you had actually told me to look it up like 4 times over at this point. So at this point, I can guarantee you I've seen it at least once or twice.
Well,
so that was
you
one of those
understand
moments.
why that promo was such a land-breaking promo, because they basically gave him the microphone. And I mean, matter of fact, before we go to Chicago, I'll either let you borrow it or give you. I think you got my login. If you go and watch the CM Punk documentary that WWE did, he talks about it in great length. He basically, so leading up to 2011, which is where he faced John Cena in Money in the Bank and won the title in Chicago and literally left with the title. When he went into that pay-per-view, he didn't have a contract. Like, his contract was up. He had no contract. And mind you, this is the main event of your pay-per-view. So basically, he could leave and win your title and essentially leave the company. He went in there. I mean, I think most of us, I would say, Kyle, were hoping he was going to win. But, I mean, you didn't know what was going to happen because we had all heard the stuff with his contract.
That was one of the first times it was a big fight feel in WWE to where it legitimately could have went either way. Are they going to let this guy win, even though he's the hometown hero, and they rarely do that? Are they just going to give it to Cena? It was one of the few matches, at least up to that point in 2011, where you had no idea where this was going to go. And that crowd, Chicago crowds, are the best crowds in wrestling. They knew that if Punk didn't win, they were going to riot. And WWE actually booked a amazing match.
Like, dude, it was great. Like, I think that's what I'm going to do. When we get to Chicago, before we get to Chicago, I'm going to have you watch the match between Cena and CM Punk from 2011. I need you to watch that crowd and watch what happened. And then keep that in your mind. Keep that in your mind because Kyle, wait a minute. I'll let Jerry do it for me. Jerry coming in the comments again. Jerry is the homie, man. Jerry will be shooting our pictures once we get these new shirts out, whenever that happens as well. But Jerry coming in saying, Punk kept you on your toes in terms of what was and was not real. Was he really taking the ROH belt to WWE? Was he really insulting Hardy personally by calling him an addict? Was Undertaker really pissed off that Punk stole the urn? Did they really cut off his mic during the pipe bomb? How did they let him say all that stuff? Was he really going to leave WWE when he won Money in the Bank? What Jerry's getting at, dude, is like, you really didn't fucking know. Like, you really didn't know, dude. Like, that's like, so again, you know, Corey, yes. And that's the thing, like not knowing what's going to happen. You know, he brings up Ring of Honor. You know Ring of Honor well at this point, as we've gotten to do many interviews with Ring of Honor guys. And hey, if you're a Ring of Honor fan, make sure you hit that damn subscribe button. But dude, when he was Ring of Honor champion, he was Ring of Honor champion and signed his WWE contract on the Ring of Honor belt, on Ring of Honor TV. Signed his legitimate WWE contract on the Ring of Honor belt on Ring of Honor TV. So that's the kind of shit that this guy's been doing since Jump Street. Now, Kyle,
and that he's been gone since 2014. It's just been one of those big myths because he literally left in his physical prime. He was only like 34 when he left, and he still had a lot of years left. And it's just been one of those unicorns since then that, damn, if he was back, I'd love to see him versus Adam Cole or Seth Rollins or Sami Zayn. And now that he's kind of trolled people over the last couple of years about if he'll show up, the fact that,
well, he's always said that it has to be the right story.
Yeah,
like that's the number one thing we've always heard is him say, I want the right story. I'm not doing it for chump money. And he goes, I'm not getting into another situation where they can get me doing a bunch of stuff that I didn't want to do. And right now is like the perfect storm. Because again, you know, him going there, and if Bryan Danielson, who was, you know, another Ring of Honor, you know, legend over there and has definitely made his name, obviously, at this point in WWE goes too. I mean, holy shit, those guys in the company at the same time are feuding against each other at the same time. And we've already heard like Darby Allin has already kind of thrown his name in that. So, I mean, Kyle, before we get out of here, I'm trying to get Corey prepared for what we got going in Chicago. Help me explain a little bit for somebody who's been such a Punk fan for so long. Help me explain to Corey what Corey's got in store for him, not only at All Out, but I think I'm going to take Corey's deathmatch virginity, and we're going to go check out GCW while we're down there as well with the homie Brass Hole at some point. So let Corey know what he's got in
that's an experience I saw one years ago when I lived in Philly. Those are an experience and an acquired taste. The fact that you actually
they're doing war games.
Those, yeah, the fact that you do get to see those in AEW is one of the reasons I like AEW, is because you can see a match that you typically would not see in North American wrestling on weekly TV. But for Punk, I honestly cannot compare it there's no way to compare it in boxing or MMA. There's no person that has this much mystique, this much
McGregor
legacy.
did before he lost.
No, I'm even with that. I mean, McGregor's still fighting, is still around. Punk's been gone 7 years. There's nobody that's been gone that long that still could come back and be a credible challenger that is in their hometown, which they are a god in. If he does show up, I honestly can't imagine it not damn near being a riot. Like, people.
Do you think he shows up at All Out, or do you think he shows up at Rampage?
If him and Danielson are both gonna be there, I think it's more fitting to have him at All Out. But you could just. But
I heard
both of them
we've heard
time.
Daniel is coming. I've heard a rumor that, I mean, again, nobody knows any of this is true. We're all just talking hearsay and bullshit and what's going on right now. But from the rumors that have been going around, they're saying that, Brian could show up at the Arthur Ashe Stadium show.
Either one, and the fact that
Jerry says he's got a proper rating at Rampage.
It's gonna be amazing to see if this is true, to see either one of them in the ring. But Punk, seeing Bryan Danielson will be amazing because he's going out. This is his retirement tour. He's only doing 1, maybe 2 years at most, and he just wants to wrestle people he's never wrestled with. So that's gonna be beautiful. But to see Punk, somebody that after a couple years we figured we're not gonna see him, and then him coming back, it's gonna be. It's a generational thing. Like, this is something they will talk about in 20 years of when he came back.
Wow, you think?
And as far as the death match experience for you, not only are you going to get to see a death match, you're going to get to see fucking War Games, dude. They're doing a War Games match. You got Nick fucking Gage and Mance Warner and Matthew Justice and AJ Gray versus For Ohio. I got a bone to pick with Gregory Iron, all right? I've been trying to get Gregory Iron on this show for a long time. We got a thing. We both got this thing called CP. But, hey, Gregory Iron, we're going to be in Chicago. And, Corey, you might want to, cover up a little bit because I feel like we might be seeing some blood splattering. It's going to be a good time in Chicago, dude. How are you feeling after this warm-up? How are you feeling about Chicago before we get everybody ready for XFC 45?
I'm excited. I'm just excited to make the trip. I feel like the fact that I just need to get my ass out of town is what it is. I'm more excited for the fact of a much needed vacation than I am for anything else at this point.
I had that last month for my birthday, and I went to Chicago, and it's amazing. Make sure 2 things you got to do. You got to go to Pro Wrestling Tees and get you a t-shirt. And you got to get yourself an authentic Chicago style hot dog. They're absolutely amazing.
That's the one nice thing about traveling with friends is I think I'm hitting me a nice fancy steakhouse, nice Chicago steakhouse, and getting a fat steak out there. That's
the one I went to is in downtown Chicago. It's called Gibson's. It is the best steak, best meal I've ever had. And damn sure the best steak I've ever had in my life.
And we're going to Wrigley. We're going to Wrigley. It's going to be a good time. Yeah, we're going to Wrigley. It's going to be a good time, dude. I can't wait for Chicago. And you know what else is going to be a good time? No socks. See, that's what you got.
Go
no
Sox.
bro.
I'm a White Sox fan, not a Cubs fan.
Go Sox. You're a White Sox fan. Man, I mean, you might be in luck this time because Chicago's been on a little bit of a skid. I'm not sure who they're playing when we're going. But
bro, they done gave up their whole motherfucking team.
Exactly. The Cubs are done. They're done.
The Cubs done gave up everybody. Like, I was watching my Sports Center ticker on my phone the other day. Like, the Cubs traded off another reason why you wanted to go see him. Oh, sweet. Another one why you wanted to possibly go to Wrigley. Like, now it literally is to go see a historical baseball park. It's not to go watch the Cubs. So
hey, that's it.
Look, man, all I know is I'm ready for Chicago.
I saw traded Chris Bryant. He was crying.
Oh,
he
dude,
was crying on camera. They traded him. Yeah, they traded him during the damn game. I've never seen that. Like, that was sad.
How shitty does that gotta feel? Like, you got traded during the game, and not to mention, we're not talking about just some bench guy. One of their best guys traded him in the middle of the game. Look, they're in full rebuild mode, but you know who might need to be rebuilding after come Thursday or come Friday night, bro? Bobby Nash's opponent might be having to reconstruct that jaw come Friday night, XFC 45. It's going down. Like I said, I'm going to be live in the press conference, Fox Sports 2. It's going to be live on their YouTube. We're going to be in there, and can you believe that they're giving my loudmouth ass a live mic? No, holy shit, they don't know what they're in for. I can't wait to see it. Hey, man, they done messed up, and they gave me a microphone on national TV. Oh, shit. And Kathy, you know it. You already know, man. You know I'm going to be asking all the good questions come XFC 45. Make sure you guys leave that subscribe button, hit that like button, that comment button, all them buttons. And Mr. Campbell, it was great to have you back on the show, sir. Try not to be
Always
a stranger,
good.
man.
Always good. Always good. Always good to come back and talk some wrestling with you guys. It's
I mean, dude, there's a seat open.
Doing so well.
Hey, man, we appreciate you, dude.
No
like
problem.
I said, there's a seat always open. But until next time and in the in-between time, like I said, we won't be live on Thursday, but I'll be live and in living color. Hey, you might want to check it out because, you know, I showed the Nature Boy. The Nature Boy said you got a style and profile. Just see what your boy is going to pull out for that press conference, and I'll lead into that. At that, until next time and in the in-between time, peace.